Story 1. For context, I, a 24-year-old woman, have this little tradition with my dad. Every other Friday, I go over to his house for our game night. It started when I was 12 and going through a rough patch, and it has simply stayed in place ever since. It is not some huge event. We order inexpensive pizza, play card games like Uno or board games like Scrabble, and talk about life. It is honestly one of the few things that still makes me feel like a kid in a positive way. Enter my stepmother. She has never been outright cruel, but she has mostly been a chronic eye roller who acts as if anything that is not centered on her is a personal inconvenience. She will make passive-aggressive comments at times, but nothing truly explosive. Until this week. I showed up with a bag of snacks like I always do. My dad was setting up the cards. Everything felt normal. Then my stepmother walked in with this, "I am about to ruin the mood" expression. She looked at the table and said, "Are we seriously doing this again?" My dad replied, "It is Friday," in the most confused dad voice imaginable. She sighed dramatically and said, "I think it is time you chose how you want to spend your Friday nights. With me, or doing this childish routine with her." Her. As in me. His daughter. The one he raised mostly by himself before she was even part of his life. My dad and I both just blinked because what do you even say to something like that? He said, "It is 2 hours every other week." She responded, "It is embarrassing. A grown man playing children's games with a grown daughter. It is strange." I was sitting there thinking, this is Uno, not some kind of solemn pact. My dad, bless him, defended me and said, "This is not a competition." She snapped back with, "It is when she keeps winning." "Ma'am, we are playing Uno." "Uno? What is this? The championship finals?" Then she stormed upstairs and refused to come back down. My dad looked so defeated, like he was trying to figure out how a simple game of Uno somehow turned into a custody-level disagreement. We ended up playing anyway, but it was awkward because every few minutes we could hear her passive-aggressively closing drawers upstairs. When I left, my dad apologized and said, "Sorry you had to see that. I did not know game night was such a concern." Same, Dad. Same. Story 2. To start, I have a scar on the inside of my foot that goes from the bottom of my foot up to my ankle in height, and it is about an inch-ish wide. A few days ago, my youngest kid noticed it and asked how I got such a big scar on my foot. I have 2 sisters, but for the sake of this and clarity, I will only refer to the one I grew up with since we are what people call Irish twins. When I was very little, my mother managed to get me into a private Christian school, and since I had skipped grades, she got my sister in there too. I am mentioning this because before that, we were attending different schools, and this was never an issue. My father would take me to my school on his bicycle to the suburb 20 minutes away on his way to work, and my mom would walk my sister to her school nearby. My father has always been a man of little patience, and although that is not an excuse, he was, in my opinion, very unpleasant to deal with. So, when he started taking both of us to the same school, he was a stickler for his rules. One of them was that we were supposed to be ready by the door at 6:30 in the morning sharp. He was not waiting for us no matter what. My sister was supposed to sit in the front with him, and I was supposed to be in the back of the bicycle. And before anyone starts, we were and are in South America, and it has never been considered a big deal here for some reason. I usually got ready before my sister and then helped her, but that morning my father decided not to wait for her. My mom has made me aware that he used to do that a lot. He put 5-year-old me in the back of his bicycle and started riding away. From my spotty memory, I remember seeing my sister running after us, and we were both crying because I knew my father would not slow down. I felt so bad and sad while sitting in the back of the bicycle that I started staring down at my feet, and I lowered my feet for a bit. Next thing I know, from what I remember, my mom is yelling and scolding my father. She is crying, wiping off blood, and throwing things at him while barking orders, that sort of thing. Apparently, when I lowered my feet, My right foot went straight into the metal wires of the bicycle tire. I am sorry, I do not know how to describe it better. It cut through my school shoe, my sock, and the top skin layer. I stayed home for about a week while my mom treated the wound with mertiolate. If you are Latino, you know that is another kind of discomfort. She also used aspergillocin, aspersol, mercury, and so on. To be honest, I never thought much of it because I was so young when it happened, and it was just part of the unhealthy dynamics in my family. But when my kid asked about it and my mom added more context to it, she explained that my father used to make us run after him in the mornings to teach us discipline, even though we were 5 or 6 years old and had not mastered the skill to finish a very hot breakfast on cue. Again, if you are Latino, you know those coladas were practically boiling at breakfast when he was ready. It was a little heartbreaking how sad my kid got. I honestly never realized how messed up that was, along with a lot of other incidents from my childhood. But yes, I have this big scar because my father was, and sometimes still is, an unpleasant person. Story 3. I like wearing all black. Despite living in a hot and humid country, my goth self will not stop wearing black. I went for a hike with my mum. Yes, in an all-black top, joggers, and sneakers with colored soles. We went to the nearby mall for lunch. We went to Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. My mum went to get a table, and I placed our order at the counter, got the number beeper, and joined my mum. The staff were indeed wearing all black, but with their signature purple aprons. The tables were placed like a U, with tables in the middle of that U. We were seated on the left side. The table across from us, on the other side of the middle row, was a group of Chinese tourists. At the bottom of the U was a table of local Chinese. I am not Chinese, by the way, I am Malay. So I went to collect our food when it was ready. We finished, I put on my backpack, and as is my habit, I returned the tray with empty plates to the counter. I walked past the Chinese tourist table with the tray and noticed they were looking at me. I went back to our table as my mum was finishing off texting. As I stood waiting for her, I took off my bag to look for something. At this point, 2 of the Chinese tourists came up to me with a plate of tortilla pizza. The one holding up the plate said, "Excuse me," and pointed to the plate. I noticed the other one behind her holding her phone as if ready to use Google Translate. I looked back at the one holding the plate and simply said, "No, I do not work here," as I shook my head and waved my hand at her. She looked confused and said, "You cannot?" At this point, my mum just laughed, saying that they probably thought I worked there. At the same time, I noticed the local Chinese table looking at us. I just bolted out of there as the tourists stood there confused. Did they think I was working there? Or did they want to ask something? If they were asking something, why did they not ask the local Chinese table? I mean, they could clearly see I was a customer too. Did they think I was on break? I should have stayed and asked them what they wanted. If it was indeed store-related, I would have pointed them to the counter. Story 4. I, a 26-year-old male, used to be an operating manager in one of the largest human resources companies. It was a big congress that was going on at that time, and I was in charge of 400 people, most of whom were university students. As you can expect, I was running from one place to another without stopping to get things sorted as fast as possible. Anyways, there was a new girl, a 27-year-old female, who had started to work in our company just 2 weeks ago. Before the shift started, I gathered all the employees in one of the auditoriums to give a briefing about how things would work smoothly. Either she was not there or she did not pay attention to anything that I said for over half an hour. Everything was going fine until I started to receive numerous complaints about how she was bossing everyone around to make them do her tasks for her. By the way, she was only in charge of 10 people. Then I started walking to her assigned place to learn what was going on. While I was walking toward her, she came right in front of my face and yelled at me in front of everyone for being a lazy worker. And she also said that I should listen to her commands at all times. There were about 100 to 150 guest workers at that moment. So, you can see that it was very inconvenient for something like this to happen while you are in charge of everything. Anyways, after that, I told her to meet me in the room and that we would discuss how I could be a better employee. I was a little sarcastic at that time. After we went into the room, she directly sat on one of the chairs and told me to get her coffee before she started to speak with me. She also said that I should hurry because it would decide my future in the company. I burst into laughter while I was walking to get the coffee she requested. When I entered the room with her coffee, I saw one of the department managers who works in our company, a 34-year-old male. When he saw me entering the room, he could not speak and remained silent. Obviously, he knew that I was the only boss in there. Finally, she started to speak with a sentence that went like this: "You should meet with my boyfriend, who is in charge of everything that goes on here." And she continued giving me a long speech for about 15 minutes. I still do not know how I listened to all that nonsense she was telling me. After she finished talking, I just said to her, "I am so sorry for the things that I do," and I looked at her boyfriend and told him, "Please do not fire me," and walked out of the office. Then I gave a quick call to my assistant and told her to bring this girl and her boyfriend to my room. While I was walking toward my room, I got an urgent call from the chief executive officer, and I left the Congress Center for half an hour to meet with one of the main clients of our company. Anyways, when I went back to my room after the meeting with the client, I saw both of them on my computer, and I immediately called security. Then I discovered that they were trying to change the schedules of the 400 workers, mostly university students who worked part-time, so that they could take their daily earnings. Our company pays the employees on a daily basis, and the work schedule is the only reliable thing we use when making payments to our employees. So, quick math, they were trying to take nearly $32,000. While we were waiting for the police to come, I just sipped my coffee and looked at them. Later, the police took them into custody and also found illegal substances in the girl's purse. Now they are both serving quite reasonable jail time, and it is still the best day of my work life, even though I did not do anything. Story 5. Today, I finally figured out why my credit score has been absolutely terrible for the last couple of years. I kept blaming myself, thinking maybe I forgot an old bill somewhere, or maybe something went to collections without me noticing. I had been stressing over it for months. It turns out the reason was sitting in my own house the entire time. My mother took my identity almost 3 years ago. She opened accounts, missed payments, and built up balances, the whole disaster package. I only found out because I applied for something very basic, and the bank representative casually said, "You have had these accounts since 2022, correct?" I swear I felt like my soul left my body. When I confronted her, hoping it was some kind of mix-up, she literally shrugged and said, "You did not need good credit for anything anyway." It felt like my future did not matter, as if rebuilding credit was just some simple task I could do on weekends. Now I am sitting here with a stack of paperwork, trying to untangle 3 years of financial chaos, and realizing I basically have to rebuild my entire credit profile from scratch. I have gone back to the basics with tiny charges that auto-clear from my checking account, with zero chance of anyone else touching it. It is the kind of slow, steady rebuild you do with a card like Fizz because it only spends what is already in your account. It is the first thing in months that feels safe, I guess. Story 6. Strap in, guys. This is going to be a bumpy ride that goes over 4 months. So, I was in a role where my boss decided to get a coworker to go buy an app that would integrate into something that was part of my job. We sat down at the end of her research, and she presented the 3 apps that she was interested in choosing from. Now it was essential that the data collected in the app was easily migrated into my system. We could not change my system, as that was a global product, so it had to be the app that was more flexible. Of the 3 that were shown, none of them would link to my system. The work in migrating the data was going to take up a day of my time each migration, and the app was going to be used 8 or 9 times a month. This would remove half of my working time each month. I flagged this, and my boss said it wasn't an issue as my coworker would be the one to do the work on the data and then give it to me in the right format. You all know that was never going to happen. So, the boss chooses an app. I'm under orders that it's not my project, so I am not to meddle, and that my coworker knew what she was doing. Side note, at this point in time, my boss had decided that we were not allowed to talk to each other during the workday. Yep, an office of 20 people, and only our team was not allowed to talk to each other. If you had a question, you had to go to our boss on the next bank of desks and ask him the question, and he would then come and ask the question of the person you wanted to ask it of. Bear in mind, I sat next to the coworker. 20 minutes into setting up the app on the iPads that were going to go out to a show and be used by other staff members, there was a lot of huffing and puffing from my coworker. So evil me, put on my headphones and a podcast and get on with my work. All I can see out of the corner of my eye is my coworker shrugging her shoulders and muttering to herself, but of course I can't hear her over my true crime podcast and details of how to bury bodies. I realize that the movement has completely stopped and that she is turned towards me waving at me. I stop my podcast, take off my headphones and look at her. I need to ask you to. I cut her off. Boss has said you have to go to him to ask a question. I'm not allowed to talk to you. But no, I don't want to get into trouble. At this point in time, there was bullying and other things going on, so I was really wary. She stomps off and boss tells her he is busy and to book a slot in his calendar to talk to him. As she returns, I'm back with headphones on, being all creative and in the zone. Now it's 4 p.m. on a Friday, and I leave at 4:30, but she leaves at 5. She was supposed to have designed the app usage by 10 a.m. that morning, but had left it until after lunch, and she had the event team coming down at 4:30 to learn how to use the app at the show the next day. It's not rocket science what she has to do. Set up an event on the app website. Write a series of questions to gather data on the visitors and check that these work properly on the iPad that the event people are going to use. Also, check that there are no updates needed on the iPads. Takes about 30 minutes to do. The data headings for the answers to go into are supposed to be formatted to match the data I need on the Monday to contact the people who took part in the event. But of course, she started at 3 p.m. and has no idea what she is up to. She plugs in the first iPad, and it demands an update. Then the next one, and of the 10 we had only one didn't, so she can't start to test the app that she hasn't designed until they have all updated. Thing is, had she just tested the 3 she needed, then that would have been 10 minutes, and the update another 10 minutes. No, she spends the next 30 minutes trying each one in turn and moaning about it. Me and my other coworker had developed blindness to anything other than our screens at this point because we do not want to be involved in it. My boss has also gone out for a smoke. So, it is 4:30 and me and my other coworker nod at each other and stuff our laptops in our bags and leg it out of the office. We know that the crap is going to hit the fan. Now, my car didn't have hands-free, and my boss had made a big issue of not having our work phones on whilst driving, so as I get in the car, I turn off my phone, plug in my podcast, and drive home in bliss that the week is over. Now, a number of years earlier, I didn't have a work phone, so a select few of my coworkers had my number, including the person who was running the event. About 8 p.m., I get a call on my personal mobile from them. And they are virtually in tears. The app didn't work, and they were told by my coworker that it was my fault because I wouldn't help her. My boss had come back from his smoke to find the event leader having a stand-up argument with my coworker over how important this was and how she had let them down. My boss said he'd fix it, spent 5 minutes sorting it, and told the event leader it was fit for purpose, and off them went. They logged in at 7:30 p.m. when they got to the hotel and connected the iPads to the Wi-Fi, and the fix was totally wrong. Could I help? Now, I'm a belt and braces person and had managed to get myself a login for the app software, knowing that something would go wrong. I said that I would, but that they had sent my boss an email saying that they had begged me to do it as I would get into trouble otherwise. Once the email came through, I spent 10 minutes and set the whole thing right. Setting the app up was the easy part. It was the exporting that was the witch. I added bespoke backgrounds, linked data over different pages, and all in all, it looked fab. They ran an update in the hotel whilst I was on the phone, and I got an email from them at close of play on Sunday saying how well my version had worked. They kindly copied it into my boss, his boss, one of the directors, and their boss, another of the directors. I come in on Monday, and the first words out of my mouth to my boss were, "Don't have a go at me for giving up my time on Friday night to fix something that could have been done right first time with planning," to which he replied, "You should have helped your coworker in the first place." I reminded him of the email he sent me saying that I was not to meddle in her project as it was hers, and that if I did I would be disciplined. Yes, I knew at this point that I was going to have to leave. The reward for this? She got to keep the project, and I now had to design the apps for each show and do the data migration. A bit of malicious compliance here. I took 2 days to migrate the data, the first time as they had collected twice as much as we had scoped for, and took that time to write a set of routines that would automate it for me. Remember this point for later. Anyway, things got worse at work, and I took the opportunity to take a payout, left, and set up my own company. Now, whilst I was negotiating the payout, I was under orders that I could not discuss that I was planning on leaving until the paperwork was signed. This is Monday morning. I'm given my release figures, and I'm also told to do no work on any projects and just to clear out the files etc. on my laptop and email and forward anything relevant to my boss. I have until Thursday to decide if I want to leave, and a meeting with Human Resources on Friday morning to give my decision. Straight after that meeting with my boss and Human Resources, I emailed my boss to tell him my deadlines for the week. I've preempted all of them by completing the work the week before, getting it all signed off and scheduling it to run automatically. I'm told to sign out of those systems and hand over the passwords to my boss. This is so I can't sabotage the company. I have no issues with this, because if it goes wrong, it couldn't have been me. All but one thing, and you guessed it. An app is needed on Friday afternoon for an event. I flag this to my boss in writing, and he replies that it's not a problem because he will do it with her on Friday. So, I sit at my desk with my nice new noise-canceling headphones on, treated myself as I was definitely leaving, listening to my podcasts of true crimes, thinking about how I will be burying the bodies. I'm left alone sorting out my online files for the next few days and clearing out my emails. I was told, in writing, to email everything to my boss. Even though he had access to my files online, he wanted me to annotate what was what. Well, after 2 hours I was told to stop by his boss, the head of it, as I had caused issues with the amount I was emailing internally. So, he had to take the files where they were. I have been told in writing to only leave the things to do with my current projects. Yes, I did check that was what he wanted and got it in email, which I obviously forwarded to myself, and told to clear out old projects from all the software I used. I did exactly that. The 25 GB of data on the server was reduced to 20 MB, and my email library, which covered my 12 years in the company, was taken down to 8 project folders, which I had emailed before I was told to stop. I cleared all the files saved in software clouds, any partial project I had started to try things out, all routines that I had written just for me and not told anyone about. I deleted my contacts in my Outlook and reformatted my work phone on Thursday evening, defragged my laptop. Now, before I removed everything, I spoke with my union solicitor about interpreting my boss' request to delete everything, and they gave me in writing that I was covered. I went in on the Friday morning to my 9 AM meeting with my boss and Human Resources with my paperwork signed. We have a meeting in my director's office, who is out for the day. After Human Resources say that I can now finish for the day, clear my desk and go, they leave and my boss calls in my 2 coworkers and tells them that I've decided to leave. I say I'm off to clear my desk, which was basically empty as I'd already taken everything home that week. Hand my laptop, iPad and phone to it, pick up my bag and say bye everyone and leave. Now what happened next was told to me by my other coworker. 4 p.m., the events manager comes down to collect their iPads for their event. You know, that app that I flagged on the Monday, and the boss said it was okay as he'd do it. Guess what? He'd forgotten, and guess where he was when the event manager came down? Gone for a smoke. Coworker tells the event manager that it's my fault that the app isn't ready because I've left. My other coworker was trying not to laugh during this. The event manager says that's okay. She'll call me and get me to sort it at home. She calls my work phone, and slowly she realizes that my phone is ringing at the other end of the office, which is confirmed when it answers it and waves at her across the room. Where is she? She's left. Why have you got her phone? Because she's left. When will she be back? She's left. Oh, you mean she's left, penny drops. She turns to my other coworker. You didn't say she's left the company. My other coworker apparently did a massive dramatic sigh, then said, well, we need it done now as we have to leave in the next 30 minutes. You will have to do it. Can't you copy one of the apps me made? I suppose so. Big shoulder shrug. I get a call on my personal phone at 8 p.m. that evening from my coworker. She's again virtually in tears. First she tells me off for not coming and saying goodbye, and that we must meet up for a drink when she gets back. And then she tells me that our coworker literally copied one of the apps I made before and changed nothing so it has the wrong event name on it. Wrong questions to the quiz, and other things are wrong. She's been calling now ex-boss since she got to the hotel, and he has turned his phone off. I tell her that I can't help. I had my access revoked, and even if it hadn't been, part of my leaving was that I could do no work for the company after my signing date and time. Hence I had to leave as soon as I signed. Well, another coworker said that the crap hit the fan on Monday morning. The app was unusable. They had to create a paper form in the hotel on the Friday night, and my thief coworker was presented with a pile of handwritten forms to process on the Monday morning. She kept telling boss that it was my fault because I'd left. Turns out he had told her to be familiar with the app months before because he knew I'd be going, and she hadn't done it. But it gets better. She called me on my personal phone 2 days later. I'd forgotten to remove her number, even though I knew she'd try to pull something. Hello, I answer the phone. Hi, it's X. How are you? I'm okay, but I'm a bit busy at the moment. Was it something urgent? I did not want to engage with her. Not after the time she asked me about something for a friend, and turned out the links I sent her to help her friend prepare for an interview were for her college homework, and she submitted a paper I'd written and put on my website, which shows that not all universities check for plagiarism. Oh, it's not important, but how do you migrate the data from the app to the software that you used? I used the manual on the server. Could you log in and do it for me? No, I couldn't. I don't work there anymore, and you took my access away. Sorry, I've got to go. Have fun. I put the phone down and blocked her on my phone and social media. Now it turned out that what she had done was type all of those pieces of paper into the app, then export it to an Excel worksheet that then had to be reformatted because the app didn't do it right. What she could have done was type it into a standard Excel worksheet and just uploaded it. She made it harder. It took her 2 days to slowly add them all in. I type at 80 WPM. She didn't. And then 3 days to export and import, and then it failed, and she had to get our international head office involved, and it took them days to get round to it as non-urgent to them. The draw results were supposed to have been emailed out the day after the event. Well, I forgot about all this, as it was the end of the events for the year. Until the Friday before the August bank holiday the next year, and my phone goes with a number I don't recognize. These days I let it go to voicemail and decide if I want to call back, but then I would answer. Hi? Hi, it's X. Okay. Now I knew from ex-coworkers that there had been no events due to a downturn in the industry, and there was a big event coming up over the bank holiday. I wanted to see how you were getting on. I'm okay, but I'm at work so I can't really talk now. I was on my break at a new client's. Oh, this is important, me thinking, yep, important to who? Okay, I have literally 5 minutes, then I've got to go into a meeting. I was interviewing people and had 5 minutes to get a drink and go back. Well, we've got an event coming up and you know that app. I cut her off. Look, before you ask, no, I can't help you. I don't work with you anymore. It's been 10 months since I left. But I need help. Seriously, I have to go. Client was frantically waving at me to restart. I'm not the person to help you. But I don't work there anymore. I shut down the call and blocked her again and went on with my day. Later, ex-coworker messaged me saying that these entitled coworker had been bugging her all week for my number, saying she lost it when she changed phones and wanted to catch up with me. So she had given in on Friday and let her have the number, then sat there while she phoned me and she heard the convo, so she was begging my forgiveness. I forgave her and told her I'd blocked this entitled witch anyways. Now for the aftermath. CW had been bragging about the app's success. You know, all the ones I'd written, but she took credit for as project manager. And what none of us knew was that the boss had told her that if it worked out okay with the app, she would get a promotion. It had all been going well when I had been doing it, and she had been taking the credit in meetings for the results, but once I left, and she had to do the one the day I left, and then couldn't get me to do the one over the bank holiday, she didn't get the promotion. She had also been working from home, everyone doing it now, saying she needed to in order to support her son, and they realized that she just wasn't doing any work when at home. Deadlines were being missed. She should have been let go, but other co-worker left, and now they were 3 people down in the team, because co-worker #3 had left just before me, and they had a recruitment freeze. So, the boss went from competent 3 workers, and one who didn't do much, to just the one who didn't do much. She thought that she could leave too and get a new job, so she started to add bits of her coworkers' responsibilities into her CV and on LinkedIn. Well, that's all well and good, but she didn't make it through the interviews, of course, because she had no idea of how the things she claimed to know worked. A great example of the Peter Principle.